Hi guys, Allison here, the Bored Housewife. Thank you so much for joining me for another week's episode of the Bored Housewife. This week, I wanted to share some of my experiences of living in Japan. We have been here for almost 10 months now, and even though a lot of stuff is starting to feel very familiar, it seems like, pretty regularly there's something new that I'm introduced to or, find or whatever, and it's pretty fun. So, today is definitely going to, not be our regular philosophy or live your best life type of episode. But I will say that the Japanese way of living is a very interesting, their cultural and social, things that they do is very interesting in their perspectives on life. So I hope that I can share some of that in this episode today, but I just thought it'd be kind of fun. I know, if you didn't know, I live in Japan. And so my husband is in the Marine Corps, and, we moved from California to Alabama to now Okinawa, Japan. So it's definitely quite a difference. But it's been really fun, and we really love living here. It's really nice. The bathrooms are a game changer. I don't know if you've ever used a bidet, but they are awesome. We live in military housing, so unfortunately our toilets are not able to have bidets put on them. But like when we go to stay at hotels and I use one, it is so nice. And then also they're like, seats are always heated everywhere. Even on the trains, the seats were heated in the wintertime when we were there in Tokyo. So they're really, it's all about the tushy in Japan, I guess. I don't know. They don't like cold tushies, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, so I just have a lot of fun stuff to share with you guys today. If you've been enjoying these episodes, please share with a friend. I would love to continue to build our Bored Housewife community. In the description, there's a link where you can find my social media pages, my website, other links to watch or listen to the podcast. So you should check that out. Today, I am sipping on a vodka cranberry. So please grab your beverage of choice for whatever time of day that calls for you. And cheers, guys. Let's have some fun. So Japan is never somewhere I would have ever imagined myself visiting, let alone going to. For the longest time, I was an extremely picky eater. I'm still, can be kind of picky about some things. And like Asian cuisine in general just was not appealing to me. And then, Japanese food is so much more than just sushi, but of course, their sushi is, it's such thing. And yeah, eating raw fish was like an absolute no to me. I wouldn't even eat a cooked fish, so, for a long time, it wasn't that I didn't want to explore their culture, but like food is such a big part of exploring a culture and, visiting someplace you got to eat, right? So I just always like wanted to travel to Europe and do stuff like that first, since it was a little bit more food that I was familiar with, and then like maybe down the line visit some of the Asian countries. But I have to say, like, I am so happy that we're here. Luckily, I became a lot more open-minded when I married my husband, and so I've become a lot less picky. I eat, I at least try a lot of stuff, and I definitely eat sushi now, so I eat fish, like I do all that, so that has been great in helping create some really interesting experiences here of trying the food and going to the different restaurants and bars and stuff. We specifically live on Okinawa, so Japan is like kind of one big main island, and then they have like an island to their north, and then they have this area of the Ryukyu Islands south of Japan, and Okinawa is a part of that. We're in the China Sea. Where we're located is actually, probably halfway, if not closer, between Taiwan and mainland Japan. So we're kind of just like out in the middle of nowhere. It's often like talked about as like the Hawaii, like as Hawaii kind of, and it's very like tropical climate, beautiful waters. I have not yet really explored the beaches or gone snorkeling or anything yet, but the snorkeling is supposed to be like some of the best in the world. Some of the beaches are really nice. Some of them are a little bit like they are very coral. Like there's some, we went to this one beach and it was all coral, like little bits of broken coral. It was kind of crazy. So yeah, that's where we're at. A lot of times people, I didn't even know. Like I knew once I married my husband what Okinawa was, but like he had to explain it to me. And it's just a huge base, military base is here. So if you're in the military world, you know what Okinawa is, but if you're not, you probably are not as familiar with it. But we are not very close. Like we're like a 2.5 hour flight, I think, to like Tokyo, to give you reference. So we're not on mainland. People get a little confused about that sometimes. So because we live in Okinawa and there's such a huge American presence here, I've been trying to learn Japanese, but it's very difficult. When I try to order and stuff like that, I wouldn't say like everyone's English is like super fluent, because it's not, but they at least know like a little bit more English than I know Japanese. So sometimes, my Japanese can get me a little bit further, and with their broken English and like the few words that I know in Japanese, we get the job done. But there are still a lot of people that live here that do speak fluent English. And so when we go to mainland to like visit, we've been there a few times now, I definitely end up using more Japanese, but living here, it's really hard because we have so much contact with Americans, and then also just like the locals, speak it well enough that you don't have to figure it out. So I know that's not a very good excuse, but people think that when you are like submerged, in a culture, that, it's easier for you to pick up on the language, and I assume it is. And if we lived in mainland, I'd probably be speaking a lot better Japanese at this point than I am, just because I would have to use it versus like, being able to kind of get by without having to use it here in Okinawa. So one thing that I just love about the Japanese culture is that they are so polite and so kind. When we first moved here, and I mean even still, but to say thank you in Japanese is arigato gozaimasu. And it was like, one of the first phrases I learned and all of that, but it was like anytime we got in a cab, it wasn't just like thanks or thank you, one, and even being an American, like one is like, wow, that person's really nice, Sometimes you don't even get a thank you in certain places in America, but it's just like, okay, thanks, have a nice day. But it's like arigato, 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 arigato gozaimasu, arigato. And so it's just like, I would say it, they would say it. I would say it, they would say it. So it was like all these back and forth. And I had taken a Japanese class at the time, and I asked her about that. I was like, is there something else I should say? Because I feel like, we just are saying thank you back and forth to each other until someone just stops. And she's like, yeah, no, that's just what we do. So I'm like, okay. So that's really nice. And even like when you go to bars and restaurants, sometimes they follow you outside. So like if they, I guess, I don't know, like just enjoyed your company, or I don't know when or why they decide to do it, but yeah, there's been times where, like, especially at the bars, if we've been sitting at the bar chatting with the bartender, they will come outside and they do this, like, little bow and arigato, and so it's just really nice how polite they are. The one that blows me away the most is TSA, and I don't know if that's what it's called in Japan, but going through airport security in Japan, just the entire airport security or airport experience in Japan is like a magical, breezy moment. It's like, oh, I'm just getting on an airplane, no big deal. Like in the States, it is so fucking stressful, right? You got TSA agents screaming at you to take your shoes off, like freaking out, not smiling, acting like every single person in line is a freaking terrorist. It's just like, oh my God, I swear. I think I saw a meme that was like, trying, like, knowing I don't have a bomb in my bag, but hoping one doesn't, like, magically appear or something like that. It's like, they seriously act like everyone is gonna blow up the plane. In Japan, complete opposite. They treat you like a freaking human being. It is so nice. They typically let you leave your shoes on, and you do have to like take stuff out, but everybody's so patient. You don't have huffy people behind you. Like my bag went through security, my backpack went through security, and then they needed to like recheck it. She's like, may I check your bag? Like, it wasn't like, oh, check a bag, like, and like throwing it across the room to some other person to look at it. No, like, she was so kind and considerate. And my husband and I were laughing afterwards. We were like, what if I would have been like, no? Like, so I don't think it was necessarily an option, but it was still just very polite and like how it was handled. And I had like these rain boots on, so they wanted me to take the rain boots on because they were kind of clunky going through. And why I had rain boots on, it's stupid, so just never mind that. But they gave me little slippers to put on to walk through security. I'm telling you guys, it's like next level. And like, you only show up an hour. They tell you to show up like 20 minutes to get through security and 10 minutes before your gate. Like, hour tops is what you get to the airport in Japan. It's so lovely. And I'm like, I feel bad because I'm just like, as Americans, we're so used to like the horrible treatment. Like, it's everyone looking like they're terrorists, I guess. Back in the States, I'm like, I can't imagine if you're from another country coming here and like Japan and then being treated like that. Like, it just must be so intimidating and shocking. Like, I wouldn't, it's completely different. And then the last thing about this is it's really hard for them to say no. They don't like to tell people no. So one thing that's kind of strange is they have like local restaurants only type places, and a common phrase that like people taught us, which I've never actually heard, is no gaijin, which means no foreigner. I have not personally heard that, but we have been turned away from restaurants before saying that they were closed, but they were not closed. So, there's a weird thing about that. People say that they're a little racist in that way. I wouldn't necessarily call it racism. I don't know the culture enough to be able to speak on that at all. I think that they might not always enjoy catering to other cultures, and it's not just Americans. Like, there's a lot of Chinese that come to this country to tour. in South Korea, like other Asian countries, I guess, as well. And so I'm sure, they get probably similar treatment as like Americans or Europeans or Australians or, wherever you're from would get. So I'm not sure, like, Americans can speculate or other cultures, like anybody can speculate as to why they do that. I've not ever talked to a Japanese person to ask them, like, hey, why do they do that? And a lot of them, unless you own the restaurant, they probably don't know. They probably have no idea why people do that, So my guess is they just, have a certain way of doing things and, eating and especially dining in the restaurants, it can be a very different experience than what we're used to. So my guess is maybe they just don't want to deal with people who don't know what's going on. But it's funny because, like, instead of them just being like, no, they will tell us they're closed, or they'll, like, go about ways, like, to say, they're sorry, and they're usually, like, even though, like, they don't want us to come in, or, they don't want us to do something, they're extremely apologetic about it. It's like they don't like telling people, like, that kind of confrontation is just something that's very uncomfortable, I guess, in those scenarios. So one thing that I've really noticed that is especially different to America is that their work ethic is so strong. So when you see, like, construction workers or, like, people that are doing, like, construction in the streets, pretty much any job, they are working their little tails off. And something that I learned is that they don't really believe in retirement. So I don't know if they retire or not, but, like, we did this tea ceremony a few weeks ago, and the woman there, she is from Okinawa, and she dressed us up in kimonos, and we did this, like, traditional tea ceremony. And that was another thing, as kind of sidetracked, but they actually love it when they see other people, like, non-Japanese wearing kimono. So I'll get back to that in a moment. But so she was telling me, we were talking about a few different things, and she was telling me that her grandmother lived to be like 100 and something, like 103 or 104 years old. And she said she had a farm, and she said she was still working on the farm when she was 100 years old. I was like, oh my gosh. So Okinawa has some of the, like, longest lifespans here, and I think their work ethic is kind of part of it. And, like, you see a lot of the older people, like, running or at least walking, getting some type of exercise, or, like, I guess, like, her grandmother's still back home in the field. So I don't know if she was doing that, but I just, like, I couldn't imagine, like, that. So they don't really, like, I don't think retirement is, like, necessarily a thing. I think, they work hard, they play hard sort of mentality. They very much enjoy, like, going out and eating and drinking. They definitely know how to have a good time, but they also work very hard. So that's something that I really admire, because you see a lot of stuff get done, and it's just, like, disappointing. I still love America. America's still my favorite country, but, when you see kind of how things get done in America, and it just takes so long for, like, a road construction job to get done, and that really interferes with everybody's life for several years, if not, and then you see here how quickly and efficiently they get stuff done. It's just like, it'd be nice if we could, learn something from that, I guess. And definitely something that I think about. Even, like, working in fast food industries, there's a lot of women that work in the fast food industries. And so that was another thing that I kind of admired, and I wish our culture would kind of change on, because we make it seem like it's such a low class thing for somebody to go work at McDonald's. But here you have like really respectable looking women, and men too, but a lot of women working in these jobs. And I don't know. I just think that's really kind of cool. They look really nice. Like the entire aesthetic is so different too. Like at McDonald's, they wear like little vests with ties and they look so polished. They all have their hair pulled back really nicely. So I don't know. It's just kind of like there's just this professionalism and like work ethic that we just don't see. When they came, oh my gosh, like this was the craziest thing ever. So they gave us, like, when we first moved in, we didn't have any of our stuff yet. So, like, the, base gives you some, like, loaner furniture to use, just some, like, basic stuff. So we had, like, a bedroom set. We had, like, a couch, some chairs, a dining room table with chairs, like, some end tables, like, all that, okay? So we had, like, a few little sets around the house. I didn't think it was going to take them a super long time because there wasn't a lot for them, they just needed to pack up the stuff and go. But it is a 2-story house, and all the bedroom stuff was upstairs, and the dressers were heavy and the bed, all that. So I thought it might take them like an hour or two at least, to get it all out of there. From the moment they pulled in the driveway or like into our parking area, from the moment they pulled in to the moment they pulled out, it was 15 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy shit. They came in here and it was like, whoop, 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 out they go. Like, it just like they had a proper amount of people with them. Nobody was complaining. Even when they came and delivered my stuff, I ended up unpacking everything. So they would have stayed and unpacked if I wanted them to, but I didn't really want them to. So, even delivering that, though, that they were so efficient. You didn't see attitude from anybody. Everyone was just there to do a job, and that was it. On our way out here moving, it was such a crazy moving experience. I think I've shared this with you guys before, but like half of our moving crew quit halfway through the day. And they called us the day they were supposed to be there and said that they're coming the next day. And I told them that it was supposed to be a 2-day job. And they're like, no, we'll get it all done in one day. They're packing us and packing it up in a truck, okay? All right, fine, whatever. So they show up. They immediately start complaining, saying that they were lied to about the size of the job, this and that. Then half the crew quits halfway through the day. Like, it was just horrible. And I was just like, why are you people here? Why are you doing this, How is this making me feel good with you packing up my entire life to move across the freaking ocean, and on the other side of the world when you're giving me attitude? I even had one of the guys tell me that I had too much stuff. I couldn't believe it. I just laughed at him because I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to say to that, So there's just like a professionalism and just a willingness to work that just does not exist as much in our American culture, and it's really sad. I wish, like, if anything that I could take, I wish I could take some of that and like throw it in America because like you guys would love it. It's so nice. They're so efficient. They just get their job done and that's it. So I was talking about the kimonos again. So I guess they really don't mind people wearing them. They think it's really cool when people enjoy their culture that way. She was telling us at the tea ceremony that like that was something that they used to teach in the school. They had like a cultural lesson that they would teach, and they no longer do that. So like if you want to learn how to do a tea ceremony and like wear kimono properly, you have to go to like several years of school to learn this stuff. So she was telling us about that. But like even while we were in Kyoto, they had several places where you could go and they would dress you in the kimono, and they have men kimono as well. And my husband kept asking me if I wanted to do it, and I did really want to do it, but it was so freaking hot. It was so hot, and I was just like a sweaty mess. And I'm like, there's no way I can like wear that and then walk around. First of all, I'm just gonna die from heat, like from the heat. But then like I would be so embarrassed to like return this, because it's going to smell. So, um, but hopefully, it's something that him and I can do in a cooler area, cooler climate, maybe in the fall time or whatever. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool because they really enjoy seeing that on people. And then like going out to eat and drinking and all of that, their culture. We don't see it as much here in Okinawa, but in Tokyo and in like Osaka, there's a lot of businessmen and a lot of business that goes on. So like getting drinks after work seems to be a very popular thing, and it could be like a Tuesday night and they're out there throwing back shots, whatever. Public drunkenness isn't such an issue. People just kind of laugh it off. So, like, we passed some people that, like, in America, they probably would have been arrested or someone would have called, and people just kind of pass them by, and it's just like, oh, they're just drunk. It's not a big deal. So, that's kind of interesting. They really let loose in those scenarios. And then eating, of course, is just a whole experience. I would say most places are chopsticks only, so I've gotten really good at using my chopsticks. If you go to like an Italian restaurant or, a different type of, even Japanese restaurants, depending on like what you're getting, they will have like forks and knives and stuff. But it just depends on the type of restaurant that you're going to. If you're going to a sushi restaurant, then you're probably just getting chopsticks or like ramen, which is my new favorite food, by the way. You're probably just getting chopsticks. But, like depending on what you eat, they have different silverware. So I don't know. Like I wasn't sure what that was going to be like when we first moved here. A lot of the sushi restaurants have like, I'm not going to say the right word, but the floors that you sit on to eat. So that's kind of fun. I really enjoy that. I just think it's really cool. So the experience of going out and, a lot of times too, like the waiter doesn't just like come to your table. They have, depending on the place, they have like a call button. So like that's something that is a little bit different that we've been getting used to. Like a lot of times we'll be waiting for the waiter and it's like, oh, where are they, are they going to come at any time? And then it's like, you got to kind of summon them or like push the button to come and take your order. And then also like, again, this isn't always, sometimes it's not like that, but a lot of times too, like they just kind of drop the check and then you like go pay at a counter. You don't like necessarily always pay at your table. So that was something that I had to get used to a lot because I would be like, check, and hand them like my credit card and they just kind of look at you. And like I said, they're very polite and they don't like to say no. So then they like run off and pay it for you. And then I realized like, oh shit, I was supposed to like walk up there. So I feel like a little bad, but yeah, it's just like, there's communication issues, of course. My husband and I, oh my God, I laughed so hard at this. We went to this restaurant, and so they really like to do kind of like set meals where sometimes that you're buying the set. In this scenario, we did not fully understand it all. So like you'll buy like a main dish, and then it'll come with like other things with it. So in this scenario, sometimes they come out like on a big tray and they'll have it all in one setting and you have like your main thing and then there'll be like all these other little things, okay? This one was a little bit more like, a first course, second course type thing. We just didn't realize that all that stuff was included. So we just saw like one thing on the menu to order. So I'm like, okay, I guess there was like a few options, but like, I was like, okay, I guess that. I was like, okay, I guess I'll have this. And then my husband ordered something. And then we had like a plate at our setting. But it was a very decorative, nice looking plate, okay? So I just want to make that very clear. It was very decorative. So then they come out with this mason jar salad. So it was like a salad in a mason jar. And then this little cup, tiny cup that had like, I'm guessing it was like type of a corn puree type thing with like some little gelatin pieces. They like corn out here. It's like a treat to them. So it's a little weird. Their sweets aren't always sweet. But anyways, this was like a before thing. So he's explaining this to us fully in Japanese, and we're just staring at him and nodding like, okay. So because they brought both of these things out and set it on our plate, like my instinct was to take the salad out of the mason jar, pour it on the plate, and eat it. But then they brought that other little thing and they put it on the plate. So then I got really confused and I didn't know what he was talking about because he was speaking Japanese. So we both sat there and ate it out of the mason jar, which isn't that big of a deal, but we eat it. And there's not many people in there at this point. We got there like super early. They like just opened. So we eat it. Oh, this was great. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Then our next course comes. Then there was like surprise dessert. It was so good. Everything was so delicious. It was awesome. And then as we're leaving, this couple comes in and they had ordered. And I see them taking the mason jar and taking the salad out of the mason jar. I was like, okay. I'm like, we looked so stupid. And of course, like, you know, they're not going to want to embarrass us or anything. So I'm sure he realized after he walked away and we were just eating out of the mason jar that we did not understand a word he said. But whatever, it's okay. And my husband was like, yeah, like I wanted to put it on the plate too. He's like, but the plate was so nice. I didn't know if I was supposed to get it dirty. And so he's like, I figured it's okay if I eat this out of the mason jar, but it might not be okay if I put this on the plate. So we're both sitting there like, oh, is this right? Am I doing this right? Okay. Anyways, so we have a lot of little moments, especially me. I'm awkward in general. I have those moments in America. So we have a lot of little moments where, yeah, and to me, it's just fun. It's just like, okay, this is what living in a foreign country is about. Like, you're the foreigner, you're the weirdo, you know? Everything that, you know, not everything, but, you know, a lot of things that they do is just not what you do. So, and it's, I say this, like, when I lived in New York, I saw a lot of foreigners, and I worked in Times Square, and, like, so many foreigners came in through there. And I remember some of my coworkers being, like, really annoyed at times and all of that. And I always was very patient with them, and I was like, you know, they don't speak the language, so it's like, of course this is going to be confusing, so like let me just be patient and like help them figure this out, you know. And I also worked at a restaurant that was in a museum, so again we got a lot of tourists from, you know, other countries there. And so I built up my karma because now I'm cashing it in, and luckily people have been very nice to me, and like in general the cultures is very nice, but I'm like, whew, I'm glad I wasn't an asshole to all those people that came to New York. I'm glad I took the time to be nice to them and patient with them and understanding that, you know, you're not an idiot. We just do stuff different because you do. You feel like such an idiot sometimes. But it's all in the fun. So I could continue to go on and on and on, but I'm going to leave it there. I'll probably make another episode like this in another few months as I have some more experiences to share with you guys. If there's anything specific that you want to know that maybe I have the answer to, please let me know. But yeah, I just wanted, like, I've been having so much fun here, and it's not always easy, it's difficult, for sure. Again, luckily, they put a lot of pictures on their menus, so going to a restaurant, we usually just point out a picture. We get a little screwed when there's no pictures on the menu, and we're like, okay, maybe we're not supposed to be at this one. Which maybe that's why they don't want us coming to those other restaurants, because they don't have English menus. I don't know. But yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, we've just been having a lot of fun. Does it have its difficulties? Yes, 100%. But I think living on a military base definitely makes it a lot easier. The transition has been so easy. I do try to shop out in town for certain things, but, when there's certain things that I want that are like American brands that they definitely don't have out in town, we have a commissary that usually has that type of stuff. So it makes not, I feel like I kind of have, weird scenario because, like, yes, I'm living in a foreign country, but I still have a lot of the, like, comfortable amenities from home. So, I'm not necessarily at the grocery store having to, like, Google Translate every single thing. But yeah, it's definitely a venture, and we've been having a really good time with it. And yeah, we really love it here. So still love America. America is still my favorite, but Japan is a really neat place to live. I will say that. So thank you guys for joining me for another week's episode. If you've been enjoying these, again, please share with a friend. Check out the link in my description to check out the social media links, my website, other ways to watch or listen to the word housewife. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and cheers, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.